Hey, film friends, I'm Nick Furman. This is Furman On Film, a podcast where we break down movies with some of my closest friends and special guests. But you know, guys, sometimes you just gotta walk down the road alone with answers blowing in the wind. So I only have one question for you guys today. How does it feel to be on your own? With no direction home, a complete unknown. Guys, it's James Mangold's new Timmy epic, A Complete Unknown. Okay, so, I had to jump on here after I saw this movie. A lot of people are out there seeing it. They're having questions about it. I'm not going to do so much of the whole pros, cons, themes, all that sort of stuff. More just want to talk about the stuff surrounding this movie, as well as, I got to get some Timothée Chalamet stuff off my chest and compare this a little bit to some other Dylan films. And I guess in the process, we'll get into some pros and cons, but format will be a little more loosey-goosey here, okay? So, A Complete Unknown. What do we want to say about this thing? Really interesting picture in some ways. I think the thing I will most say about it is that this thing is like at least 2/3 performance. I mean, really, it's fascinating because this thing, they shot some of this or were planning it before COVID and were working on it. And originally, I think, aimed at getting this thing out at least 2 years earlier, and then had some delays and breaks, and I don't even know if the writer's strike affected it, but there were some definite delays. Now, that's interesting because of, well, at least one thing in particular, which is to say that, Timothée Chalamet, did you guys catch that Adam Sandler bit on the Golden Globes on Sunday? Oh, that was beautiful. Chalamet. The Timothée Chalamet thing is... while he had all this time in that interim, this dude just went method and learned how to play the guitar and the harmonica. And so, I mean, there's like stuff on the set of Dune where he's off camera, in breaks, working on playing guitar and stuff. And so the thing about it is that it allows this film to become like remarkably performance art. And so, what you have is a work that has very, very little actual dialogue in this movie. So, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I guess those are some of the questions I was kind of approaching as I sat down to actually watch this movie. Like when I wanted to see does this capture... Well, first of all, does this movie justify its existence? Why are we getting it now? What does it do new? And as a result of all of those things, do we need it? What does it justify its existence? So the answer to those questions, I think, are pretty unique and cool. So I guess what I would say is yes and no. Because, so look, I mean, guys, this movie, on the one hand, does nothing new. This is the period of Dylan that we know the best, like 61, 62 to 65 before he went electric. We have, Scorsese made a documentary in 2005 called No Direction Home, which is literally these years and actual footage. Panabaker and D.A. Panabaker in 67? Like Joan Baez, Donovan, Dylan, they're all actually in this doc. What is that one called? I've got it somewhere. Don't Look Back, I believe. Yeah, Don't Look Back. They're actually in that doc doing that thing right then. So here's an area which is highly covered, right? This is not the 70s. This is not like how did Blood of the Tracks just arrive in our lap fully formed in 75? Like how did, what happened to Dylan when he went, Christian in was it Slow Train to Coming or whatever, those around the 90s. This dude has had like a 60-year career, and here we are right smack dab in the most prolific but well-covered part. And so it makes sense because they're adapting a book about Dylan going electric, right, in Highway 61 towards the tail end. So we know kind of where we're headed. But does it justify it? Yeah, I think it does, even though it doesn't do really anything new for two reasons. One, Chalamet just freaking learned how to play guitar. I mean, this guy is good. And he learned how to play harmonica, and they bring in Monica Barbaro, who I have not heard much acclaim for. Guys, Joan Baez is not easy to sing, and she freaking kills it. I mean, absolutely murders it. So you're trying to make a performance art film, or whether you were trying to or not, that's what you ended up with, right? And the two people who carry the performances in this film are remarkably good. So I think that is the very best part. Now, I would also say the other reason I think it's going to bring in brand new viewers because it's Chalamet and because it's her and because it's Edward Norton. So, there's some 90s stands that are going to run in on this one to see Woody Guthrie. Because of those things, you're going to get people who would never sit down and watch an old doc or wouldn't watch Todd Haynes' I'm Not There or other things which maybe probe at more deeper things, but would love to watch a bunch of Dylan songs be sung by someone that they're in love with. And, here we are. So again, those are the pros, I'd say, or the things that I think are interesting sort of surrounding the film. Monica, Timmy, they're incredible. Even Edward Norton as Woody Guthrie is great. And, the guests that are in the spots, the performances, it all goes down pretty smoothly and pretty solidly. What interests me about the work on the other side and why, the guy, look, James Mangold makes, I wanted to say Walk Hard. He makes the film Walk the Line. He makes Walk the Line about June Carter Cash. And Johnny Cash, wins an award. And the thing is, if you go back and watch it, it is a perfectly fine biopic, okay? Musical biopic. And Joaquin is great. He's okay. Although I would say I prefer Boyd Holbrook's Cash in this film. But the thing about it is, it's such a template. It's such a palette, a color, paint by numbers way of doing things that Walk Hard actually comes out and sort of just smashes it in the mouth, right? Like, this is exactly how you make Ray or how you make Walk the Line or, Rocket Man or Bohemian Rhapsody and all these things. And then we're going to tear it to shreds in a way. What's fascinating is that movie exists and Mangold still goes, nah, I'm just going to double down and do it again, guys. Like, I'm going to do the same thing with Dylan. And so he kind of sticks to his guns, and to his credit, he makes an actually half decent work with The Complete Unknown. Although, like I said, it's been covered here and there and everywhere. What bothered me about it, or I guess what I'll say, nothing really bothered me about it. I mean, sitting there and listening to the folk festival in '64 and hearing the electricity of the crowds and them capturing the Newport Folk Festival and all those things, that was remarkable. I was in love with it. In fact, the best part of that was me texting my mother, who is a avowed folk fan, more so like Judy Collins, a little Joan Baez than actual Dylan. But she literally saw Baez live in like '81, and she saw Collins live. And so I'm texting her these things, and I'm like, Mom, did he like really hook up with Baez and all these things going on? And we're just having this dialogue. And honestly, that was as good as the movie. It was just this entire scene, this folk scene, is what was so intriguing. And I do think A Complete Unknown captures that fairly well, okay? What I find bothersome is that Dylan is an enigma, man. And in some ways, maybe it was like, I don't even want to try and touch I'm Not There. Because I think Dylan is such an enigma that when Haynes makes that movie, he's like, I can't even capture it with one dude. I've got to stick like 6 different people in 6 different places, and some of them are women. And all of these different things. And that's how we're going to get this sort of like panopticon of who this guy actually was, right? This guy who rolled into town from small town Minnesota, hit the village and the folk scene in New York City, took the world by storm with his preternatural gift, not only for playing guitar and singing, but for writing trenchant social commentary and poetry about all the issues of the time. If you love Dylan, that's why. That's why you love Dylan. It ain't for his voice, okay? I mean, maybe you got around to his voice by Blood on the Tracks or something, but like, come on, man. It wasn't there in the beginning, right? Or it was in a very unique way, and you loved it for its eccentricity, I guess. But anyway, so my point is that when you take that guy who has just captured the collective imagination of us for so long, and you put him on screen with a really famous actor, you're going to bring audiences in. That is a chance to interrogate who this dude was. And this movie, guys, does none of that. Not any of it. It does nothing new. In fact, as even in the times when the film approaches that thing, right? Like there's this sort of touch in the air that maybe Dylan has a carny background and he learned to play guitar from a guy in a carnival. And there's a moment where he gets some mail in a package, and Elle Fanning, who represents Rotolo in real life, his sort of on again off, his constant female presence throughout his real life. Sue's Rotolo. She represents kind of like a slightly caricatured or fictionalized version of that character. She sees a piece of mail for Robert Zimmerman, Dylan's real name. She goes to interrogate him and ask him about his past, and he kind of gives like a Chalamet smirk, and then the movie just goes somewhere else on the stage. And that is like, it's a giant, I mean, it's harsher than a middle finger, but it is him saying, look, guys, like, we're not going to get into this. I'm going to give you his music. I'm going to front line his music, which is the thing that, I almost said entrapped, intrigued and surrounded and engulfed his legions of fans for decades. If you love Dylan, it's about the songwriting, it's about the craft, and it's about the music. And so, can I fault Mangold for doing that? No, but I do think he had an opportunity. Imagine a film that actually interrogated Dylan with this good of a Dylan performance from Chalamet and from Monica Barbaro. And gosh, even the blues guitarists they bring in. I mean, look, it's all really cool. And it did that stuff too, even a little bit. I think that it would just raise itself in my estimation as well. So the other critiques I have are minor. Like, I wanted more of Pete and Bob together talking, but that's the thing. I kept saying Woody Guthrie. I'm sorry. Edward Norton is playing Pete Seeger. Woody Guthrie is bedridden throughout this film. Gosh, hopefully you listen long enough to allow me to correct myself, or you can leave it in the mentions. But I wanted more of Pete Seeger and Bob Dylan talking. But again, that's what I'm saying. Like, when the movie goes to that point, it just kind of it leaves they're all ellipses. It's all an ellipsis. Like him and Pete, that's an ellipsis. Him and Boyd Holbrook as Johnny Cash. Cash comes out kind of drunk, makes a statement, hits a car into another car, drops a Coke bottle. Another ellipsis. Like we get no actual interrogation of what like drove and motivated these men, right? Which I guess in one sense is honest, but in the other can be quite frustrating. So those are my critiques. There's little things where like things are anachronistic or not quite. Like, for instance, like, did Dylan really go, oh, I just wrote Masters of War and I'm going to run down into this basement and bang it out because, the Cuban Missile Crisis is on TV right that moment? Like, come on, man. Nope, sorry. And there's parts on like Highway 61 that are getting recorded earlier, or times they are changing, which are coming out during Free Will. There's a little bit of like time shifting here and there if you really get in the weeds, but overall, I think it sticks to that stuff pretty well. The final thing I want to say is a little bit about Mr. Chalamet. This is a true confession from the heart of Nick to my friends. I have resisted stubbornly since the beginning the whole Chalamet is the next Leo. I respected the guy. I liked him in Greta's Lady Bird. You know, I thought he carried Lucas Bones and all. He's doing all the right things. He shows up on the sports shows and the talk shows. He plays Wonka, which I refuse to watch still. There's only one Wonka to me, and it's not Johnny Depp or Timothée Chalamet. But that's, neither here nor there. So he's been doing all the right things. But I got to tell you guys, I've outspoken about saying that I think the first Dune film is pretty mediocre. The second one is exceptional. But that deep down, my Paul Atreides was always much closer. I read the book, much closer to Kyle MacLachlan from the probably overly derided David Lynch's Dune than what we got with Chalamet. Chalamet's Paul is interior, yes, but he's not assuming or I don't know. Atreides is a person who can band all these people together. Anyway, my point is that I have stubbornly had harsh things to say about Tim. While respecting his talent, I've always kind of thought he's a kind of guy that you sort of just want to punch in the face. And the thing is, it works perfectly here because Dylan was an asshole. It's so there. Listen, go watch some of the Panabaker film. Dylan, that's who he was. He was enigmatic, yes, and I think that's why Mangold probably didn't even try to touch it. But he was unafraid and unapologetic and snobbish and condescending. I mean, look at the way he's reacted to this film. He's been pissed. And so, which is fine. That's his prerogative. It's also what made him a freaking genius. So my point is, I think that part actually even works. My perceived arrogance of Chalamet actually works in his favor. But I guess what I'm trying to confess in conclusion here is that this is the first time I was like, oh man, this dude has got it. This dude put the time, put the craft in, and is a remarkably good Dylan. This movie could have gone wrong 700 different ways, and instead it goes pretty darn right. So hats off to Timmy, hats off to the whole cast and Mangold. And this is not a terrible time at the movies. If you're a new fan of Dylan, I think you might even like it more than anyone else. So, all right, let's get on to final score so we can get out of here. A Complete Unknown. Look at me pulling my stuff up here right now, just trying to figure out what I put. I gave A Complete Unknown a certain score. Any guesses? 3.5 out of 5 stars. That is generous. It's somewhere in the 3 to 3.5 range, I think. I'm going to give it that half-star bump because, again, I just was so impressed with all of the people and all of the players. So, hey, let me know your thoughts. I want to hear from the actual Dylan fans, and I want to hear from, if you've never watched or heard a Dylan song in your life, you can't stand the dude's voice, you don't get why Blowing in the Wind was such a big thing, let me hear all of it. I'm very fascinated, and I can't wait to talk this out with you guys further in the comments. And we will see you soon with another great hit as award season is rounding into form here, guys, and we will be back at it soon. So I'm Nick Furman. This is Furman on Film, and my friends, stay firm.